Hi, this is my first talk for metaphysics, the class that used to be Truth Teachings. The title of my talk today is Hell is a Do-It-Yourself Project. So there is a saying, a kind of folk logic, that tells us religion is for folks who are scared of hell, and spirituality is for folks who have been there. If you have ever been through hell, you know God had nothing to do with it. And that's kind of what I want to talk about today. First of all, what is hell? That's an interesting question. The whole concept of a pit that you get thrown into when you're bad, and gnashing of teeth and burning flesh didn't really show up until the New Testament. The Old Testament didn't really speak about hell as such. But the Old Testament did talk a lot about punishment. Punishment for all kinds of things. I invite you to visit with me some scripture from the book of Exodus. We're going to explore 21 and then verses 12 through 27. I'm going to read it to you. This is from the International Version. Anyone who strikes a person with a fatal blow is to be put to death. However, if it is not done intentionally, but God lets it happen, they are to flee to a place that I will designate. But if anyone schemes to kill someone deliberately, that person will be taken from my altar and put to death. And of course, this is God putting down his commandments from my altar and put to death. So there's kind of a commonality there, isn't there? Put to death, put to death. It goes on to say, anyone who attacks their father or mother is to be put to death. Anyone who kidnaps someone is to be put to death. Whether the victim has been sold or is still in the kidnapper's possession, anyone who curses their father or mother is to be put to death. So in that instance, hell, your punishment, what you have earned, is simply to die. And I kind of like to look at that a little bit metaphysically. We know that darkness is an absence of light, and that cold is an absence of heat. And we also know that evil is an absence of God. And I put to you that hell is a breaking of the connection that we have with God, with our source, with the divine. And what is it that breaks that connection? I just read to you about murder, about abusing your parents, about kidnapping. All of those things will take you farther away from your source. Fillmore tells us that anytime we follow sense consciousness, we chase the things that dazzle our senses, we're farther and farther away from our spiritual source. That appeals to me because that's how I built my own personal hell. And most of you who know me and have heard me talk before know that I'm in recovery. But before I got into recovery, I built myself a really serious hell. And I didn't think I could ever come out of it. So for those of you who have never done that, right, let's pretend there's people who have never done that, I would like to kind of give you an image that works for me. And I'd also like to remind you that every single experience is tailor-made by the designer. We build it ourselves. We create it ourselves. So You may or may not actually relate to mine, but I'll share it with you. For me, that hell is a pit of despair, and I always think of it as like a dark toilet bowl, right, with the porcelain sides, and you're trying to climb up, and somebody flushes and just barrels you down, and you're spinning out of control. You can't find your way up. You can't find the way to the top. For me, that's a lot what hell was like. I didn't want to reach out to the people that I loved because I didn't feel like I was worthy of their attention or their help. I didn't want to get them dirty. I didn't want to corrupt them. I felt like I was some kind of a poison oozing out into the world, and I wanted to protect the people that I was closest to. So the people that I may have reached towards for help, I actually ran away from. And at that time, my concept of God was that old white guy sitting up in the throne with his big cane, putting judgment on people, thou shalt, thou shalt, thou shalt, off you go, off you go. And I figured if he got his hands on me, it was going to be even worse, right? So twisted and so torn and so incredibly separate from my source. And those are extremes. And a lot of us have gone through those extremes. A lot of us have, for a lot of different reasons. It doesn't have to be drugs and alcohol. But as I'm preparing this talk, as I'm kind of living in this principle, I'm looking at how incredibly easy it is to build those little hellstorms, right? Those little pockets of separation. We carry resentments, we get angry, we get in a hurry, we start to blame somebody. In any one of those situations, we're breaking that connection. I start to believe that the people out there aren't connected to me, that they have nothing to do with me, that they aren't a part of me, that they aren't a part of the Christ-centeredness that's the breath of life in every living thing. I start seeing the differences or feeling insecure. I start feeling like I'm not worthy, or I'm not smart enough, or nobody cares what I have to say. And I tell myself these things, and I let those words get louder. Those feelings become more meaningful to me than that small, quiet voice within that tells me I am loved, I am connected, I am a part of the world and essential to the world around me. And that voice is always there, but we turn it off, we walk away from it, we overpower it with other noises when we're building our own hell. So now we know what it is, and we know how to build it. And I'd like to talk a little bit about how to come out of it, no matter how deep you are. I mentioned that the Old Testament doesn't talk a lot about hell, but the New Testament does a pretty good job of building one. One of the big ideas that we carry, myths that become a part of our civilization, of our heart, of our being, isn't actually from the Bible at all. It's from Dante. And he tells us, abandon all hope, ye who enter here. I may have mingled that quote. What he doesn't tell us is that door doesn't lock. We build ourselves into a hell. We build ourselves into a darkness. We cut ourselves off from the help that we need, the people that would love us, that would guide us, the light that would illuminate our path. And we forget that that door doesn't lock. Once we're in there, all we have to do is find the door and come back out. Reach for that connection and find our way back into heaven, back into light. A great metaphysician that I know, Rick Hastings, is quick to remind us that heaven is a do-it-yourself project too. And when we take those resentments and those angers and turn them into prayer and turn them into connection, when we take those feelings and turn them into love and acceptance and understanding and joy, when we look at the people around us and instead of blaming them, we start to understand them, reach for them and make peace with them, be peace for them, hold them in love and in light, we start to feed that connection. There's another saying that I really, really love, that when God is lost, when we can't find God, it isn't God who's lost, it's us. That we can find God, we can find that connection. We can turn our feelings and emotions into gratitude, into praise, into rejoicing. We can rejoice and love one another. We can find our way out anytime we want to. We just need to give up whatever is fueling the hell we're creating and accept the truth that we are Christ-centered and connected in God. Thank you for taking the time to watch my talk. I hope that you enjoyed it, and I look forward to your feedback. God bless.